Hey everyone, thanks for watching How To Pixel, and in today's video, we're talking about Bob the Dragon. Now Bob is an amazing dragon. He's very sturdily built. He has awesome features to him, awesome wings. There's a whole pipe and stuff in there that allows him to breathe fog, and it's really one of the, no, not right now. You were supposed to save it till later. Don't look at this, This is a surprise. Oh, hey there. Thanks for watching How To Pixel. It's a bit cold out in here, but we have to talk about a dragon today. That is right. Today we are talking about the dragon from the Halloween light show. This video is going to be one long doozy of a video with some really cool, interesting things. And yes, it also is actually freezing out here. We had some wonderful snow come in, and all of the dragon is out here in the garage, and this is where I have to record it. So, I kind of actually want to keep this on, even though I can't even hear myself. It's very comfortable. But this video is really overdue, though, because the Halloween light show ended on Halloween. And here we are now at December 2nd at the time of recording this. And I don't really have anything for this video done. And I promised it back in the Halloween light show. So now, here we are. Now, don't worry that it looks all taken down back here, because this is all the dragon in here. It is taken down, but I did take a lot of videos when it was still up and the day I was taking it down, so I could show you what it was like all together, show everything with it, and then as I took it apart, you could also see the insides for it. So let me talk about the order of this video, because there's a lot of different things I want to include, and I want to make sure it's all ordered correctly as time went on as we were building this, so you can know every step that we took to make this crazy custom thing, which was the first custom thing we've ever put in the light show. So I have everything nicely printed out, so I have all my facts and information correct. So first, we're going to be talking about some basic information and statistics with the dragon, like how many pixels it took, what I used to run it, power, the wires, all that. A little bit on how it's built, and then after that, once you know the basics about it, we will go all the way back to the beginning, how this thing became from an idea, how it went through the process of us figuring out how we're going to build it, how I made a 3D model for it, how I got it in X-Lights, put the pixels on it, all of that. And then after that, I'm going to go back to all of the older clips I have from when it was built, so you can see how it was built. And then after that, we're going to come back in here and we're going to look at the individual parts, and I can explain everything I did with them, how they were cut, how I put like splices in them, figured out the angles, put everything together. Yeah. But first, let's talk about some interesting statistics and all of the basics of how the dragon is built. And this video is actually a really important video, so I'm going to add in the fancy little transitions I do between each section. So let's go to that. So I have a whole bunch of statistics and information written down so I don't forget any detail at all. First off, this thing has 668 total pixels in it. And if I'm ever pointing over here or saying this thing, it's because all of the pieces are right over here where you can't see them. We'll take a look at them later, but that's why I keep gesturing that way. So 668 total pixels. There's actually, I'd say at least 15 more, or even more than that. 15 extra pixels that aren't accounted for because I added a lot of null pixels to this, and I'll get to why in a second. There was also a 7-channel fog machine that I had hooked to this, and this is actually the box for it right here. This is the fog machine. I've talked about it a bunch of times before, and I have a whole bunch of other videos with it. It wasn't specifically in the dragon, but we had it sitting behind the dragon and had a pipe, a piece of PVC pipe that was bent at some angles, or it had some angle pieces in it, so it could get the fog from behind the dragon up into the head. And with all that combined, it made this dragon have a total of 2,011 total channels. Now, like I was saying about the null pixels, the reason for that is there's a lot of custom, actually everything is custom wiring we had to figure out for this. Everything was done from scratch, so I had to figure out, how am I getting all these pixels in here? Am I going to be going this way around, then jump around to the next row? or am I going to be working my way up? How are the pixels going to be getting into this? And a lot of times, the wire between two pixels wasn't long enough to jump from pixel hole to pixel hole, so I just leave an extra pixel on the inside of the dragon acting as the wire going to the next pixel. There were some pros and cons to that. It made it so there was a lot less wiring to solder, but it made it on testing night a huge mess. And it took a couple evenings of me out here on my laptop and running back and forth to the dragon, typing in a bunch of numbers and trying to figure out why is this pixel off and being nulled but not this pixel. So a lot of different pros and cons to it. Honestly, I just wish I went with the wiring and put wire in between the pixel gaps instead of it, but I can't change it now. It's fine. You can see an example of that here in this wing that went to the dragon. This is the, if you're looking at it, the left wing. And as you can see, I needed the data to get from, if I can hold on to it, from here to here because that was the easiest way to wire it, but I didn't want to have to cut out a gap in the pixel and have to solder wire in here. And there's another section down there I had to do it for. So I just took 4 wires, or not 4 wires, 4 pixels, kept them in between there so that way the wire could reach from there to there, and then just turned these pixels off. And this is just one example. There's many different places in this dragon where I did something similar with the same amount of pixels or less. Now I gotta figure out where to put this thing. I will just set that there since we will be getting back to that eventually. The entire dragon ran, or not the entire dragon, most of the dragon ran at 30% brightness for the brightness of the lights. There were 2 exceptions, the eyes of the head and the inside of the head, the mouth part. I had those running at 100% brightness just so you could see all of the light for those. Because obviously I want the eyes to be really bright on the thing. And there were some lights on the inside of the mouth to help, or what were supposed to help make the fog look cool. It didn't work out like I thought, but those also run at 100% brightness. This thing ran on its own controller box. The controller box had 2 SRX1 V5 receivers in it. I used all 8 ports on those, and I had a HP 1200 watt power supply powering the entire thing. Now that was probably overkill. I actually would have been perfectly fine on just one singular power supply, but most of this actually uses a lot of the parts the Mega Tree does, because this is in the same spot the Mega Tree is, and I designed it so that way I didn't have to buy a whole bunch of new pieces and poles and controllers. I just used whatever the Mega Tree would be using since it was Halloween and the Mega Tree wasn't up. So it was the same power supply that the tree is using now and the same receivers the tree is using now. The same controller box the tree is using now. There's a Wizard of Wire breakout board on the power supply, and I had a Hanson Electronic fuse board in there for power injections. I only needed 1 power injection for this entire thing, but there are 7 power injections now for the tree, so I had to get all of those set up ahead of time, so less changing during the transition season. The dragon uses the same base the tree uses with the 4x4s, uses the same guy wires, and it uses half of the tree pole to also hold it up, and you'll see that once I get to the older clips later in the video. And now, the entirety of the dragon is built out of this stuff that you see right here, and you can see behind me, and you saw in the wing. And what this is 4mm corrugated plastic. Basically, as I like to call it, plastic cardboard. And I guarantee you have props in your show that use this stuff, because almost everything from Gilbert Engineering, Biscorio Studios, any of those places, a lot of this stuff is made out of the same material as this. The only problem is we had to get full-size sheets of these, of this material, and cut it ourselves to make all these different angles and pieces and whatnot. So we got these sheets of corrugated plastic from Lowe's or Home Depot. We got them in 96-inch by 48-inch sheets because it was slightly cheaper buying one big one than buying a bunch of small ones. And by no means did we get this done with one single sheet. I think we got 7 or 8 sheets, and they were $35 a piece, so let me do some quick math. So like $280, I think, if my math's right. It's cold out, I can't think. And then there are some other things that hold up the dragon that isn't just this plastic stuff. We have some PVC pipe in it. We have the base, which is made out of wood. The main pole in the middle, which is, I think it's a fencing pole. I show it later in the video. But one of the things that holds up the entire dragon is zip ties. The amount of zip ties we use to hold things together, like, you can more than likely see the zip ties right here just holding this top part of the leg onto the bottom part. The amount of zip ties that went into this thing was insane. So, one of the main things that helped hold it up. The way I got the pixels to stay in the pieces of the dragon was I first laid out where I wanted all the pixels and X lights, tried to make it similar while also keeping the pixels within reach, the holes within reach, so the wire can go from one hole to the next. And I just took a 1/2-inch drill bit and drilled all of the holes out, which means I drilled 668 holes to put all of these pixels in. Now, 1/2 inch is slightly bigger than the pixels. However, the Koro is thick enough that when you push it in, it like helps hold it a little bit. I tried the next size down, which was 3/8, and I could make them fit, but I had to cram them in there, and I didn't want to do that for 668 pixels. So I went with 1/2 inch, and not too many of them, or not really any of them, have fallen out by themselves. But if you're drilling into like just a very thin piece of something, I'd recommend getting a more precise size because the pixels will just slide through then. And then finally, the fog machine, like I was talking about, I have other videos that talk about the brand of it and how you connect it in X lights and all that. So I'm not going to go over that again in this video. And that's a bunch of the basics with the dragon, and I realized going like this and motioning and gesturing to things, my hands look really stupid with these on. They're now warm. I don't need them anymore. For the next part, I'm going to be talking about the whole process on how we took this from an idea all the way back in February and how it got to this point. Well, not this point. How it got to the built point outside, not the point of it just sitting in the garage. How it got set up and all that. But for this next section, I'm actually going to go inside for it because there's no reason to be out here with all this and I'm freezing. So there are a couple of different questions I hope to be answering in this part. The first one being, why did I build the dragon even in the first place? How did I come up with the idea for it? If I got any, where did I get inspiration from for it? And then also some other questions to do with it, like how did I make a 3D model for it? Did I even make a 3D model for it? Yes, I did. But how did I make that? And also how did I put it and decide where to put all of the pixels on it to put it in X lights? So the very first thing is why the dragon in the first place, and why did I want to put anything in the Halloween light show at all? Well, over the past few years of the light show, we've been working on changing the Christmas one every single year to make it cooler and better than the last. But for the past few years, the Halloween light show hasn't really gotten anything special and unique to it. If there's something I'm putting in the Christmas light show that could also be a Halloween prop, then I'd put that in the Halloween light show, but nothing specifically for Halloween. An example of this is like when I added more peace stakes, or when I added more arches or any of that for the Christmas show. I also put them in the Halloween light show because they could be for both. But if I added like candy canes or mini trees to the Christmas light show, I'm not going to put those in the Halloween light show because that'd just be weird. So at the beginning of this year, when I was planning out everything and figuring out what the goal for each show would be, what I wanted to add, I knew that I wanted to add something big for the Halloween light show. At first, I was thinking of putting in a bunch of those tomb signs that you see, or maybe spiders, or any of those other things that you see in other Halloween light shows. But I thought that isn't really the coolest thing. Sure, it add more stuff to the Halloween light show, but I want to do something like one big project. So at first, I was looking around at a lot of different Halloween light displays on YouTube and other places, and seeing what the common thing is they do, and then what's some other things that only a few of them do, but keep them separated from the rest, because I don't want to put something that all the other shows have been using. It's not going to make the show unique. So I was also looking on websites like Home Depot and Lowe's for things that they have that are Halloween related. Not even like light up things, just things you can construct. And then thinking about how could I take that and put lights on it and put it in the Halloween show. And one of the things I stumbled across is a dragon. And at first I was like, well, that would be kind of cool, but like there's nothing specifically awesome about it that I could do to make it amazing. And then that's when I remembered, oh wait, last year I added a fog machine into the light show for the first time. What if I put that fog machine in the dragon, and then the Halloween light show could have a fog-breathing dragon? Or, as I like to call it, a fire-breathing dragon, because close enough. And that's when I said that's the thing I want to add. Just one big project. I don't need to add a bunch of different Halloween things, which was the original plan at first, just to put Halloween stuff all over the display. No, I wanted to spend all the time and resources possible on this one specific thing, the dragon. So this was probably back in like March or April or sometime around there, and I had absolutely no idea at all how to do this, how I was gonna do this. So my first thought was to go looking for displays that have dragons in them, light shows that have dragons in them, and see how they did it, and maybe pick some ideas from different ones. However, after looking all over the place, I could not find a single light display at all that had a dragon in it. None at all. And still at this point, I can't find anything that has this type of dragon that I have in the show. And I'm convinced that I'm the only Pixel light show out there that has a dragon in it. And if you know of a light show that has a dragon in it, please let me know. I'd like to see if there's any others. But I really think at this point, I'm the only light show that has a dragon in it. But that was also a bit of a problem because there was nowhere I could look for any inspiration at all with this. So then I was looking on Biscoyo Studios, Gilbert Engineering, all the places that make your props, and looking to see if they had anything dragon related. I found a very few things, but they were all 2D props. I can't remember where I found it, but I found this one prop. I think it was like one of those Chinese dragons where it's like all wavy and interesting, but it was 2D again, and I didn't really want to build something that's 2D. And also, this was early in the year, so I wasn't spending that much time on it. Every few days, I was just looking up some information and trying to figure out how I do it. But at the very end of this, I got no inspiration at all from anything to build this, how I was going to build this, other than from one or maybe two single things. These two blow-ups were things that I use as like a basis to help design the dragon that we have in the show now. So at this point, I still had no idea what material I was going to use. I had no idea how to construct it, where it was going to be, but I figured that in the end, I'd like it to look something similar to these. I found this one picture of a dragon someone built, and it had a bunch of different interesting pieces to it, and I saw this would be a good way to build the insides and the frame, but what material am I going to use still to make the outsides of it and hide all of that? So after all that, I thought to myself, there's no way I can just think of an idea or try and draw out an idea. I need to make a 3D model for this. There's no other way around it. And I was kind of trying to stay away from this because I am no expert with 3D modeling at all. The only 3D model I've made is the house the picture of my house that I have in my X-Flights layout, so I can put the props on it. And it's literally a box with a triangle roof on it because our house is as simple as that. So I spent a couple weeks learning a little bit about 3D modeling, and I used a software called Blender. Do not expect a tutorial about that. I'm not dabbling or even coming close to going into that. No 3D modeling will be done on this channel. But I figured out a small, basic amount of information to use to make a 3D model in Blender. So that's what I did. I went into Blender and started messing around with things. So after at least a month, I finished out with this for the whole body and everything except for the head. The head I knew was going to be the hardest part because it can't be as undetailed as everything else. There has to be a lot of detail to the head. So I was kind of pushing that off and trying to wait. And also at the time, I didn't know how to get the fog to come out of the mouth. My first thought was to put the fog machine in the head, but after a bunch of thinking and trying to figure stuff out, the fog machine, this thing is extremely heavy, especially when it's full with, the fog juice. So I was thinking that putting it inside the head probably wasn't a possibility unless I was to build a separate frame inside and have it like sit on a pole that goes into the ground. and I didn't know what to do and how to do that. So the head and the fog machine I pushed off till later. The goal right now was to find a material now to start building this dragon out of. And at this point, I also figured out the best place to put it would be where the Mega Tree goes, since that area is really dark and nothing has been over there for the Halloween light show. And I thought, well, since the Mega Tree isn't going to be up, I might as well use pieces of the Mega Tree to help build the dragon. And that's why I used the 4x4 beams as the base. And I was also going to take the entire pole to hold up the dragon. But then afterwards, once we started getting the dragon built, I found out that both of the sections of the whole pole for the Mega Tree is going to be way too tall, and there's going to be a pole sticking out of the dragon, which would look weird. So that's why I decided to only use half of the pole, which worked out pretty good. Then the next part, which I couldn't put off any longer, was figuring out what material I'm going to use to build this. Am I going to use some sort of plastic or cardboard or whatever? And my first idea was to figure out what material are most of my props made out of, and can I get that in sheets, or have someone cut them for me, or what would be the process of that. I did more research, and then found out that you can find these sheets in Lowe's and Home Depot, and I went and took a look at them, took a look at some other things, but I settled on using the corrugated board because I thought I could cut it into the sections I need. I could put a little slices in it so I can bend it but not have it in separate pieces. And this would allow me to hopefully shape it in ways. So I went and bought 3 sheets of that at $35 a piece, maybe 40 I think. Then got home and started constructing things out of what I had in the 3D model and hoping I can make something similar to it. So the very first thing that got built were the legs, and specifically the front legs. Now looking back at it, I probably should have started with the body because that's the main piece, but the legs worked out okay. I also didn't have exact ideas for pixels yet and where they were going to go, but I did try to keep in mind a guess as to how I would put pixels in. So the reasons the legs aren't perfectly round and there's sections to them is so in each section I could put a line of pixels. And then the same thing for the body, because if you're looking at the side of the body, instead of coming down round in the front, it goes section by section. And then I put a row of pixels in each of those sections, but still wasn't exactly sure how. Then I had to model the head, and I spent days doing this. And this is what I came out with. And later in the video, I will show the head and how I did that. But that was the idea. The very last thing, though, I wanted to talk about was how, in the end, I got the pixels on it. And all I did was take that 3D model I made. This 3D model that I've been showing right here is the same thing I imported into Xlights. And I used that in Xlights to put the pixels around it. I just took single lines. That's all I did, the single line model. And also a lot of the polyline model. Just basically outlined pieces of the dragon. Yeah, that's really it. There's not that much to it. I just figured out what would be the best way to have the wiring go. How am I going to separate everything without having to do lots of power injection and not have to use too many ports though. So I just took the polyline and had it go in the way that I want the pixels to go all over the dragon, and it turned out to work. And then I took all of that, which there wasn't any wiring view for it. So I took all that and kept having to look at my computer and then punch the pixels. But I punched all the pixels into the Corel the same way that I designed it in Xlights, and it mostly ended up working except for the null pixels like I was talking about. But that's really it for the design part of the dragon. I want to say there's not really much to it, but there's actually more than I can comprehend to it. I don't know how I even made that 3D model or made any of this. It's a miracle that it worked. Now for the next section of this video, I'm going to be taking you outside, or, well, I already took you outside. I'm going to be showing you the clips when I took you outside when it was built, and how it was built, how everything stayed together, and I guess everything to do with that. So let's go take a look now at how the dragon looks completely built. So here we are outside with the dragon, and I know I just talked about some of the first statistics, about it, or not really statistics, but information, just how it's built and what it's built out of, some of the basic things. And now that we're out here, if I can get my phone out, I can start to show you more of the details with everything with how it's built. Now, I am planning on taking this down today, so I am going to be taking it apart in this video too, so you can see some of the insides, because a lot of it you can't really see, like such as how the wings are held up. That is inside the Dragon. So the very first thing we did when we made this was we started working on the legs. We thought that the legs are kind of the main piece of it, so we'd start there. However, now looking back at it, probably starting with the body would have been a little better, but it's not that big of a deal. And then after that, we made the body, after we made all of the legs, then we made the wings, then we made the neck, and we finished off with the head. The head was by far the hardest part, and actually, the head is sort of not built right now. It's kind of drooping to one side. It's gonna have to be rebuilt for next year, because it looks like a really big mess. And then behind all of this, we have the fog machine box in the back, which outputs the fog into the head, which we'll also get to. And then we have some messes of wires and a controller box that controls all of the pixel lights that are on the Dragon. So the very first thing I'm going to start out with is the base, and I'm going to work my way up showing you how the Dragon is built, and after that I will start taking it apart so you can see the insides of it. So the very first thing is the base. We wanted a sturdy base to be able to hold the Dragon up. So we used, actually for most of the Dragon, a lot of the same pieces the Mega Tree used. Also, since it's in the same place as the Mega Tree, it made it a lot easier just so these parts are already out here. So once this is completely down, I can just reposition them a little bit to set up the Mega Tree. So we have the base on the bottom, which only the body really sits on, but not a ton of weight is on the base. We have these two 4x4s, just normal 4x4 wood. We have them crossed to make like a T or a cross. Not a T, it's a cross. It's the same exact base that we used with the Mega Tree. So like you could see, we have the loopholes, or the little things for the PVC pipe to go onto on the bottom, the wraparound to hook the strings of lights to. So we have this entire 4x4 cross, and you can see it ends back here. It goes under the thing that holds up the fog machine. So these 4x4 beams are crossed, and in the middle we have a hole that has a pole that you can see right there going up. Now the pole actually, I'd say, stops about right around this region of the Dragon, near the middle of the neck. And that's because the pole for the Mega Tree actually has two sections, and when you put them both together, it's a lot taller than this, and it would have stuck out the head and made it look weird. So we have just one of the Mega Tree poles in here, and then a smaller piece of PVC pipe in that pole to get to the top of the head. So the body goes through, or the pole goes through the body, and then the rest of the body is sitting on these boards that are on top of the 4x4s. I will say a lot of this is very pieced together. It may not look the nicest, it's not the best, but when you're looking at it from the road in the dark with the lights on, it looks really good then. But since this was my completely first homemade project, DIY, absolutely no help thing, it didn't turn out the prettiest to look during the day. And there's a lot of things, like I said, pieced together that aren't probably done as best as they could be. But for example, like with these boards, I just have a bunch of random boards stacked on top of each other. They are screwed together, that way they don't slide out, and the body sits on that. So when we assembled the Dragon, the very first thing we did was put the pole through the body while the body was laying on the ground, and then we lifted it up and put it in the hole. Now, the hole that the pole is in, I could be like Cat in the Hat and rhyme things. The hole that the pole is in is slightly too big, so the entire thing wanted to lean forward just slightly. So I took two of the guy wires that we use for the Mega Tree right here, and I put them in the little holes, if I can scooch in back here, in the little holes that this pole has. Now those holes right there are actually where we put bolts to hold in the second part of the pole, but those aren't there, so we just put those guy wires there. And then as you could see, right above it, we have PVC pipe up there that goes into this hole on that pole. So there's that, and then there's the legs. And the legs are completely separate from the body, can be easily detached. There's nothing really holding them on that well to the body, actually. I should say there are like 5 different parts to this thing. There's the body, there's the wings, and then there's the legs, the neck, and the head. They're like separate pieces. The wings can be detached, the head can be detached, the neck can be detached, all the legs can be separate. But this whole body piece, we don't really have a way to break it down any smaller than it is. So we're gonna have to figure that out eventually. But like I said, the legs are a completely different system. Now, once I take some of this apart, I will show you how these pieces are built, but right now I'm just gonna show you how they're connected. So for example, this leg, which is its own thing with the foot down there, we have this little piece of rebar sticking up. This is for the front legs, sticking out of the ground, and we have it zip tied there to hold the bottom on. Now for the top, all we have is a zip tie that goes through this side of the leg into the body and just zip ties into this piece of corrugated board right here. Now this was not an easy thing to do because we had to push the zip tie in this way and then put a little pair of like tweezers inside to grab onto the zip tie and pull it back out of the hole to zip tie this. Now I will say the legs aren't the strongest and they don't hold on like crazy tight, but it's enough to where if we got even a decent amount of wind, they're not going to go anywhere. They will move a lot, but since it's zip tied to the body, the top half isn't going to go anywhere. And since we have the stake on the bottom isn't going to kick out or anything. It's the same thing for the right leg too. We have it just zip tied to the piece of coral board right here to hold the top on, just one singular zip tie. And then we have a stake down here to hold the bottom in. And the legs and feet can actually detach from each other too, but I will show those once they're taken apart and I can show them separately. Now, the back legs, since they're a lot smaller, we didn't need to do anything crazy. All we have is just one singular zip tie. That is it that holds it. We have an extra pixel hole back here that I thought we were gonna have a pixel in, but we actually didn't just because of how the numbers lined up. So we put part of the zip tie through there and made a second hole for the zip tie to come out of. Now the feet, we have the feet kind of tilted so they sit on the 4x4, and that's because when it wasn't doing that, the foot was kind of blocked by the beam, so we thought it was better just to set it on top. That way the light still shines out. Even though you can't see the legs that much at all, I still thought we should have back legs, just so if you look at an angle, or if I was ever to put this somewhere else, it doesn't look dumb with just 2 front legs. And then the left back leg of the dragon is also the same. We have one singular zip tie. Where is it? Oh, this one's here. And we actually, if I can see it, the sun's shining on my phone, we actually didn't even make a second hole. We just had it come out of the gap in the body. So that is how all the legs are attached. And this one was sitting on the 4x4 beam. I just moved it while I was hooking up this black cable. So that's what holds the legs on. And so far we know how the body stays on without falling and how the legs stay there. Now when we're assembling it, the legs actually come last because they're in the way and we don't really need them there while we're hooking it up or hooking everything else up. So what we do after we have the body up, or what we did, was next the wings. And the wings, I don't really like the way that, I like the way the wings are attached to the main pole, but I don't like how we have to then connect everything around the wings. And the reason I'm saying this is we have no access to the inside of this without taking this entire side piece off, which is the biggest pain. So hooking these wings on were very hard since we had to do them first, then put this side piece of the body on. So what I want to do next year is maybe make a flap back here where I can open this entire back piece to get in easier, but I'm not sure if that would still make it sturdy or not. So for the wings, we have a cutout of a piece of the corrugated board, and I spray painted it. I put holes in it so it looks like a wing. Some of the pixels on the back could not jump, for example, from here to here with one single wire, and I didn't feel like soldering something in. So I just left 4 pixels to bridge the gap there, and I nulled these out on the controller. So I don't have to worry about those. And the same with these 5 pixels right here, which have come untaped. Then we have a piece of 3/4 inch PVC pipe that's on the back, and we have 5 zip ties holding the PVC pipe, or holding the wing to the PVC pipe. And we just wrap them around here, and some of them only go around the pipe. But for the other ones, we drilled a hole in the pipe. That way the zip tie can go through there and it'll stop it from turning. And that way the wing can't really turn that much while on here. It could still be tilted a little bit, like that much, but it can't go any farther than that because those zip ties will stop it. If we didn't put the zip ties through the holes, then it could probably spin all the way around. These pieces of 3/4 inch pipe then go in and connect to something that I have on the main pole, which I'll show you once I get this side of the body off. Next is the neck and the head. But before I move on to doing that, I think I'm actually going to quickly show you the fog machine box, maybe even the controller box. Then I'm gonna take the legs off and start taking it apart so we can see the inside a little better. So let's move on to the fog machine box. This box right here holds the fog machine inside it. That way it doesn't get wet or anything. And then the fog pumps out into this pipe, goes up there into the head, and then spits out the front. And in the front, you can see that we have a 45-degree piece of pipe, if that will show. There we go. That way the PVC pipe points down to help the fog come outward. Trying to figure out where we were going to put this fog machine was really difficult. We were thinking about putting it on the ground and keeping the old box that we used last year to hold it in when it was just in the yard. But then after doing some tests, we couldn't really get the fog to go all the way up that high without that many problems. So then we thought, what if we put it in the body, but then we don't have access to inside of there without having to tear it apart. So that wasn't an option. And then the head, it's not big enough to just set it inside the head. So we thought the easiest thing would be meeting in the middle and putting it high up almost into the head, but a little ways apart from it. And that way we can also access the fog machine since we have to fill it about every other day. So the way this thing is built is we just have the old fog machine box sitting on top of this frame thing that just holds it into the air. So we did do a little bit of changing to this box. We tried to spray paint it. As you can see, parts of it are black. No, it didn't catch on fire. That's not why it's black. It's just that when we were spray painting it, we started getting black paint on this red, and we didn't want that to happen. So I decided I'll just spray paint it next year. So what this is just 4 2x4s that are connected together with other 2x4s into this square, actually almost rectangle shaped thing. And then we screwed the fog machine box on the very top of it. You could see we have a little board. Let me zoom out. A little board we put up here that the fog machine box sits on top of, and then it's screwed into that. And then this whole thing is screwed into the 4x4 beam down here. You can see I put in screws diagonally to go through the 2x4 into there. So I could shake this a very decent amount and it's not going anywhere. I'm actually moving the whole Dragon by shaking this because it's just secured to the 4x4. Now we do have some very swampy ground, so I had to put little boards underneath the feet, that way it didn't sink. And then let me come around to the side. Now the wires were not supposed to look this messy. The reason they do is I had a whole bunch of problems with the fog machine that, yeah, it caused me to have to move a bunch of stuff, and it's just a mess now, and I didn't feel like fixing it since there's only days left in the show. So coming in to supply power to all of this, we have one single extension cord, this orange one down here, which then used to go into this green outlet splitter down here, but I had to move around a whole bunch of stuff. I really don't feel like explaining it right now. It comes up here, and then we have 3 things plugged into this outlet thing. This wasn't supposed to be on the board like this. This was on the ground. I had it all taped up nicely, but I had to do some things just to move it around, and I probably wouldn't leave it here just in case water falls on it. I just did this for the last 3 nights of the show. So we have the controller box plugged in right here. This is the controller box, and I will show you the insides later. but that power is the power supply for all of the Pixel. So that lights up the Dragon. Then we have the fog machine plugged in, and then we have a fan plugged in. The fan and fog machine wire come up into this hole into the fog machine, and then I have an Ethernet cable that runs down to that yard box right there. Inside it has an F16 V5, and that supplies the DMX signal for the fog machine. Back here you could see the wires come in for the fan into this. I don't really like how the fan was designed. It has this little connector thing that I have to have the wires from the fan plug go into to then go into the fan, but whatever. Oh, and I forgot, this is new too. There never used to be plexiglass on the back of this box. I did this that way I could see how full the fog machine is, and I could see the status of the fog machine, what's happening with it. And to make this, all I did was cut out a piece of plexiglass that fit, and then I very gently, after drilling holes into it, starting with a very small size and working my way up, I was able to screw it into the box, and then I taped it. I put some tape around it just to make sure no water gets in. The Ethernet cable, which you could see right there, normally plugs in here. I just have it unplugged for now. That gives the DMX signal to the fog machine, and then power comes in down there. The on-off switch is always set to on, and that's because when I kill the power from the smart plugs, it will shut this off since there will be no power, and then when the power comes back on, it will turn back on the fog machine. Now, a really big problem we had was the fog. Well, first trying to figure out how to transport the fog from there to up here. What I first did was put a hose right in front of, like, pushing on the fog machine up in there. But that did not allow the fog to come out. It actually got stuck in there, and then after maybe like 30 seconds, it would slowly eventually reach its way out, even with the force this pushes with. Like, if I come to the remote right here and I push out some fog, you could see that that has a lot of power. You can hear the power of it pushing out. And even with all that power, it couldn't push it up the hose or the pipe or anything to come out the head. And the reason why, after I did a lot of research and looked at like 10-year-old Reddit posts to see other people dealing with this problem, it has to have a little, at least some size gap between the front of the fog machine and the hole of the pipe for air to go around into the pipe and then to actually be able to move out there. So we did that. We thought all was fine and dandy. It was pumping it out, working great. This is 2-inch pipe with a 4-inch to 2-inch reducer. That way it has a bigger hole to come in. Then it hits this 45, goes up. There's a 45 to make it level back out, and then a 45 to point it downward out the mouth. It was working great the first few nights. But then the fog machine broke. And it's a whole long story. But basically, the fog got stuck in the box, the extra fog, because when you see, if I turn this on, there's fog in the box right now, because not all of it makes it through the pipe to get out. This fog inside ended up getting into the fog machine, then turning back into fog juice or something, and it completely ruined the inside, but I was able to save it somehow. I'll explain that later. So adding a fan helped pull out that additional fog that came back in and emptied it out. I'll explain though later some of the things I did to get to that problem and how I had to tear apart the fog machine to fix it. That's the fog machine box. It goes up into there. And now I'm going to start taking parts of this off. So I'm going to start by taking the legs off so I can show you the inside of the body. Now it just looks like some odd flying creature, but the next thing I'm going to do, I'm debating whether I should take off the head first or if I take off the side of the body, because I'm not sure how much the side of the body is supporting the neck. So I'm thinking probably taking the head off first would be best, and I can show you the head once it's on the ground. Now, the way the head is attached, I can show you that right now. If I come up here, the way the head is attached, you can see it's starting to smush forward just because it's not supported well inside. I rushed it. There was like 5 days before the show started when I was making that. So please don't judge the quality right now. It looked good when it was set up. But there's a pole going into the head, and there is a little gutter piece, and let me show you it on the back side. I forgot to point that out. There's this piece right here that's meant to hold up gutters, and that's what I have holding the pipe here and inside the head. So this is at the very top of the pole in here, all the way up there. That's at the very top holding the pipe in there. So for example, back here when I want to empty the fog machine, or not empty, fill the fog machine, all I have to do is lift this out of there, push it to the side. It doesn't do anything up there. And then I made it so I can rotate this like that, and now there's enough room to pull out the fog machine. So this little gutter piece is at the top in there. Now that doesn't provide much support for the head, so there's 4 zip ties that hold it onto the neck. There's one there, 2 on the back, and then 1 more on the other side. So next what I'm gonna do is put the ladder in the front, look into the head so I can make sure I didn't zip tie the pipe to anything in there. I'm gonna pull the pipe out, and then I'm gonna cut those zip ties to take the head off. So just to show you the insides quickly, there's the little piece of pipe that comes in. I think it's literally just a 1/2-inch piece of pipe. The gutter piece on top, and then that's holding up there. Now I think I'm gonna have to cut the gutter piece off, or the zip tie off of it, to be able to pull the pipe out. So let me do that. There we go. I just got the pipe out. I had to cut the gutter piece off the top of the PVC pipe to be able to pull it out, and then I just pulled it out from the back and bent it around. I was hoping to be able to take this off, but it's stuck on completely now. I didn't glue it or anything, I just pushed it on, but it's stuck now. Now we're gonna move on to the next step, whatever that is, which is probably taking the head off. And there is the head. This thing is soaking wet. There is water everywhere. All I did to pull it off was just cut the 4, will that come out? There we go. Cut the 4 zip ties that was holding it onto the neck. And then the pole, this pole was actually not secured to anything in the other pole. I just had it sitting in there. So I pulled that out and this came out with it. I had to cut the gutter piece, which is somewhere in there. It's around here somewhere. So I cut that out, lifted this up, and it's that easy. Oh, and I had to unscrew the power injection and data connectors, but that was it. Cut the 4 zip ties. I could lift it right out, and then I could deal with the pole later once I get it out, but I just dealt with it now. Now that there's not as much weight up there, I am going to take this side off, and it should be able to hold it still. And that way you can see what's on the inside. There we go. All of the zip ties are cut, so now I can pull. Oh, never mind. I forgot 2 up here. And now we can slide this out and around. Is there another darn zip tie that I didn't get? Never mind, the pigtail was just stuck on something. And there we go. Now the side of the body is off, and you can see the inside of the dragon. Oh, and there's 2 pigtails on the side. This male one, this is where the data comes in from the controller, and this female one has a wire that comes out of it to then jump to the wing on that side, which is this wire right here. Now let's take a quick look at the inside here. Now what it is we have the tree pole right here that goes into the ground, or out from the bottom into the 4x4s in the middle, and then it comes up here, comes out there. This is still all one pole, comes out into the neck, but I have this contraption I made. What it is it's a cross, or maybe it's a T, I don't know what it's called. I have 2 pieces of pipe that go into it to slide over the pole, and then I have 45s on each side with, it's kind of thrown together. It's not the best looking, but a piece of 3/4 inch pipe going in the side of this 45, so it's technically not coming out of a 45 degree angle since it's a smaller pipe. This helps keep it at a better angle to make the wings look correct. And then I just drilled a little hole to put a bolt in, so I could just slide this bolt out. Or maybe I have to unscrew it out. I don't remember how I put it in. But once I do this, I could just pull the pipe out. And then I also have a pin here to hold this whole contraption from sliding down. I could show you this more once I get it apart. So let me do that. There's the bolt. And now I could just pull this out. And now the wing is out. It's quite that simple. All it was the pole went in here, just not at the perfect 45 degree angle, because I wanted more of like a 22 degree angle. And it didn't even go in that far. Just the bolt helped hold it in. And now I could pull out the bolt on this side right here. Oh, let me unscrew the data wire first that goes to this wing. The wings have no power injection. They just they chain onto the side of the body, whatever side it's on. So let me see if I can undo this while recording it. There we go, that's out. Now I should be able to come over here. Let me come around the back. I'll just grab into the pole, pull it out. Yep, there we go. And the wing is out, just like that. And this side of the body also has a little notch. I shouldn't say little, it's actually a big one. It's because we missed the first time when we put the notch in, but it's okay. And this side of the body never comes off. It will always stay there, since I could just push this through and fix it on that side. So let me lay that wing down. Poor Bob the Dragon, it's no longer a dragon at all. And now I could just pull out this pin if I wanted to, like pull this thing off. Why is that so tight? There we go. Pull the pin out, and now this little thing slides down, and once I take the pole out, I can take that piece off the pole. The next step is to remove the neck, and before I can do this now, I have to pull out these guy wires, which should be interesting because I pushed them really far into the ground. So we have swampy ground though, so it might come out easy. Oh, yep, that was very easy. That was concerningly easy. Let me try this one. Oh yeah, that just came. It was in the ground that far and it just pulled out that easily. I have to get those loose though. That way I can come up over here and try not to trip on the wires. I could pull the little hooks out. These little hooks, all they do is go into those two holes. You can see how that one is just in that hole. Let me pull that one out. There we go. And now I can take off the neck. Is there anything special I have to do? You could see the whole thing is tipping forward a lot now. I don't think there's, actually there's a little bit more stuff I need to show. Let me take off the neck. Now the next step of removing the neck is actually very simple. It's not attached to the body at all, not zip tied or connected at all. All it does is just slide over the pole that comes up to about here. And I have a piece of the corrugated board inside in a horizontal way. You can see the zip ties here. That board is right there, and that way it helps make this this roundish shape. And there's also a hole right in the middle that the pole barely fits through, and that way this it can't shake at all. Like it's in there, and the pole can't move around in there. So I should just be able to slide this right off. Maybe I should pull out this power injection wire first. There's also a little hole in the 3 of those flat boards in there for this power injection wire. If I can get it out, it feels like it's stuck. And now just slide this up, just like that, and it is wet. There we go. This is the neck piece right here, and let me see how well you can see this. There you go. Right there is the pole. That's how far up it sticks. And the pipe, the 1/2-inch pipe that goes from the rest of the neck into the head, let me grab that. All this pole did right here was just sit up in here like that. And since the guy wires were in the hole, it stopped it from going down farther. Right now, if I let go, it's just gonna fall to the bottom. But this went up, and that's where the gutter piece was on the very top, inside the head, and that way it held the pipe in, and the head just slid over that. Now, with the neck, right here on the back, let me zoom this out so you can see. In the back of the neck, we have this square hole, and this is right where the end of that pipe is, so that way I can reach my hand in to put the guy wires in. And if you look on the inside, you could see the little board I was talking about, and there's some lovely spiders in there. Nice. The pole went through there, and I also have other holes for wires and whatever else I need, and it's zip tied to help keep this shape, because this shape can't come undone. This is stuck in whatever shape you consider this. So there's that, and finally is the body. And to take off the body right here, let me make this nicer looking. To take off the body, first I just gotta fish out all of those data wires through the hole on the other side, and then I'll pull out the entire pole with the body on it, lay it down, and then pull out the pole. So I'll just do a quick walk around of the body now that there's nothing left, so you can see some other things of it that might have been blocked. Right here we have a hole, and this is where we crammed all the wires inside the need to go places. And I think that's actually it to it. There's nothing else too interesting. You can see that this side is zip tied on too, but it's never coming off because just taking off that one piece allows us to see the inside and everything that we need to. But hopefully next year or something, I could figure out a way to make this a flap to open, to do something with. I'm not 100% sure. And then I'll show you some of the other things I want to show with this once it's all taken apart. Right now you can see there's dragon pieces everywhere. There we go, and it's up. Now I can just move this to the side quickly. It is quite heavy, and I can lay that down flat on its side. And there we go. The body is down. Let me come over here and just show you now what we have. Here's the hole on the bottom where the pole came out, comes in through there into the other hole that we have right there. And now I can just pull out this pole through that hole, just wiggle it out back and forth like that and pull it out the rest of the way. Now I can just slide this piece right off. Here is that little interesting piece that I made that I was talking about. It has the T, and then what size pipe is this? I forgot if it's a quarter, or not a quarter inch, if it's 1 inch or what it is. Now everything shouldn't be too hard to store because that's smallish, it's flat at least. The legs should be easy-ish, but this body piece is just massive. So I'm honestly considering leaving this outside for the summer and winter and whatever's to come until next year, but I will figure that out. Now you can see we have the 4x4 beams, and here we have the hole for the pole to go in. And these are the wood and stacks of wood that I have to just hold it up, and I can just pull those out. I put little boards on the side so it doesn't slide off the 4x4, so that can come off, and then that can come off. And then now we can just readjust this for where we want the tree and start setting up the tree. That's after I take down this box here now. That's basically it for taking that down. My phone's at 2%. I'm about to die and I only have like 24 seconds of recording space, so I'll quickly just show this. Yeah, now there's dragon guts all over the ground that I have to pick up. So I'm going to pick up all of these items, take them into the garage, and then in a few days when I feel like recording again, I will show you how the pieces are built. So the very first part I chose is one of the feet, because this is probably one of the simplest parts. Now I know I talked about this in the designing part and how we came up with the idea, but the very first thing we started with were legs. So the feet were built to the scale of the legs, not the legs were built to the scale of the feet. So starting off with the feet, I already had an idea of how big they had to be. So what this is it's one continuous piece of coral that goes all the way around the front, wraps around, and then comes to the back. And then there's another piece of coral that I cut right here to help keep the bent pieces of the coral in that position I want them in. So the way I started with this is I first wanted to figure out how high do I want the feet off the ground, and do I want the legs sitting on top of the feet or in the feet. And this is a front foot. So the way I designed it was for the leg to be able to fit in here, and then it's big in the front so you can tip it at an angle, and that way the leg doesn't come straight up, it comes up at an angle, and you can see that in the dragon when you look at the videos of it, because the legs are at an angle. A lot of this was trial and error, so any piece I'd make, a lot of the times I'd cut a very small piece of it first, see how it looks compared to other pieces, and if I didn't like it, I'd keep changing it until I found a size I liked. Then I would cut out a whole piece, because this stuff is expensive and I didn't want to blow through it. So after doing some measuring with the leg, I figured out that I wanted the sides of the feet to be 13 inches, the back to be 16 and a half. This other side right here is 13 as well. The very front, I decided to make it about 5 inches. And then the almost front pieces, these are both 6 inches. And let me check this one, 6 inches. So I decided that will be the size I'll try. I'll make a whole foot, and if I don't like it, maybe I can modify it, and if I really don't like it, I could start over. So I took all of those lengths and added them together. So let me just quickly do that. So I think that adds up to be 49 and a half inches. So I took one of those 96 inch by 48 inch boards. It was probably a piece of the board because more than likely at this time when we were making this foot, it was already cut out with other pieces. So I tried to find a board that had, almost like when you're cutting cookies, you try and find a spot in the dough that you can fit any cookie cutter into. I was trying to find a spot into any board that was already used where I could cut out this section. And I found one, and I forgot to check, how tall is this? This is 6 inches. So I cut out a piece that was 49 and a half inches by 6 inches, if my math added up right. So I had that one long sheet, and then I would put markings into the board, just pencil markings, where I wanted the slices to be able to bend it. Because at these bent sections, you might think this is a separate piece, but all we did for anything at all that has any bends or angles, we just made a little slice in the board, just a little slice, and that way the back still stays together, so it allows you to bend it, but keeping it together and not having to zip tie more things together. So this whole thing is all one piece in the front. So I had the markings, I'd make a little slice. I was doing it inside on a cutting board on the ground just because there was really no other room to do it. And once that was done, the very end here where the two pieces meet, I put very small holes with a drill bit in them. And that way I could put 2 zip ties so it holds it together. Now, it's not the stiffest thing and it's not the most beautiful thing. This is not square, it does not look perfect. But really, as long as the overall thing looks good, you're not going to notice each little detail, like how this specific front foot is not perfectly square. After that, I marked out where I wanted to put all the pixel holes in the feet, so I knew where those were going to be. And once I marked out all those, I took the 1/2 inch drill bit and made the holes for all the pixels. Then to hold it all together, this is the hardest part, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but math in school was actually useful for this. I had to figure out a whole bunch of angles to try and cut this piece at so that the leg could fit in here. So what I knew was, if the leg was straight up and down, that this could stick up farther back if it's laying down, farther back, because you don't need as much room. But since the leg is going to be at an angle, it needs a little bit more room to be able to slide in. So I stuck the leg in here, leaned it back before this top piece was on, leaned it back against something, and figured out the angle I wanted it to be at. I used a, what's the darn thing called? Now I can't think of the name. And then I used different equations to figure out the total angles for how long each section should be, and was able to put it in. Now, something that I made a very silly mistake on and forgot to factor in was that the pixels take up room back here, and you can't fit the leg all the way to the edge because the pixels need some room. But thankfully, the legs still fit. We had to cram them in, but it's something silly I forgot to factor in. It still worked, though. And yeah, that is a whole foot. Now, just to show one of the back feet quickly, the back feet the legs stick straight up out of the foot, so you can see that the board is a little bit bigger because I don't need as much room to put in the leg. Oh, and what I forgot to add with the last part is all of the legs, the way that I got this top piece on was just make a whole bunch of holes with a drill bit on both here and then on this board, and I just zip tied it on. The front legs, this board actually sits on top of this part, which is interesting because the back ones sit inside of it. I'm not sure what my thought process behind that was. I don't know if I even intentionally did that, but I like the back feet a lot more. Just with that design, it helps hold it better. And since I already made 2 feet by the time I got to these, it was a lot easier. And you can also see I drilled holes for pixels on this side, but pixels never got put in. and that's because this is a right foot, so this was up against the body or something, and there was no need to put pixels there. The next piece I want to show is one of the back legs. The back legs are extremely similar to the front legs, except the front ones are longer, so it's easier to show this since it's smaller. This is pretty similar to the foot, I'd say. First off, this top piece is something completely separate, so I want you to imagine this isn't here to make it simpler. I started off with something here and lower, so this doesn't exist. Don't think about that. It's very similar to the foot, like I was saying. All I did was make a board this is all one board, not including the top part, so don't think about the top part. This one board is this tall. I'll measure it in a second. And then it comes around, it's all one section, just they're spliced so it can bend. It comes all the way here, and then it also bends around to the back. And the back is white because I didn't spray paint it. And then it zip ties to the other end of itself right here. So this leg, without the top piece, it is 22 inches tall. And then each section is a certain length. So it's like the foot. I added all of the sections together, and let's just say it totaled out to be 40 inches. So I would cut a 22-inch by 40-inch board. I put the splices in every spot where I wanted the leg to be able to bend around. And then I bent it. I put a splice in the back so it could fold around to the back, and then zip tied it to itself right here. Now, when I did that, it looked okay, but it was extremely flimsy. And the reason for that is because there was nothing to support it. So it would try and bend in all different directions, and then the angles weren't right, and it looked pretty bad. So what I had to do for the legs was, let me see if I could show this here. I have this bracket inside that I cut out of a piece of corrugated board. And this helps support all of the front parts of the leg, not the top, because that's okay. If these are supported, this supports itself fine. And that way it helps so nothing is bent in wrong angles. Now, the way I did this, I had to do a whole lot of math again with angles. I feel like an angle wizard now. I know so much about angles, like the formulas and everything. It was crazy. I also had a lot of help from online angle calculators. But I figured out what the size of this needs to be, what the length of each part of it needs to be. I also put holes in it, that way the wire for the pixels can still be able to go through and go to each spot. Now, I'm not sure why this pixel is out, but as you can see, I have null pixels again. Like this pixel, it doesn't do anything because the wire needed to jump from there to there, and I didn't have enough wire between two pixels, so I made a null pixel there. Like I said, I don't recommend doing that. And then the way I got the bracket to stay was I just zip tied it. On here you can see all the zip ties, if I can hold it so you can hopefully see it. There's all of these zip ties that go around, 2 in each of the front sections and then just 1 on the side sections. And then the bracket has a hole in it at each of those zip tie spots as well, so the zip ties can go through it and just hold it in place. Now, when you're looking at the dragon, this is a left leg because the top part, let me make sure you can see the top part. It leans to this side, and that way it looks like a natural leg, because if I just made this flat on the top, a leg doesn't really connect to a body like that. Like, for example, your shoulders, they don't just end flat up here, they kind of like curve into your body, I guess you could say. But it leans off to this side just so it looks natural and it meets the body. The right side of the leg has no pixels in it right here just because it's up against the body. And then the bottom 2 holes I didn't use just because that sits in the foot, so there's no reason to have the pixels there because they'd be on the inside of the foot. The top part was the hardest part of, I want to say everything, but there were some harder parts. Probably the second hardest part of anything, and this is for all of the leg toppers, because this is also one board. It starts off here, it curves around, this is still a part of it, this is a part of it, this is a part of it, this is a part of it. There's just no back piece, because I was lazy, and also that way I could still reach my hand in there to adjust pixels if I need to. As you can see, this is not as simple as everything else that curved around and just putting splices in it, because each section is not a perfect rectangle. As you can see here, This is a perfect rectangle. The sides are the same distance apart. The bottom and top is the same distance apart. It's a rectangle right here. This is not a rectangle. This is something else. I hope I have a picture when I made all of the markings. I had to do so much math to try and get this to all curve over perfectly, and even math to figure out where the pixel holes would be and the distance for them so they all looked right. I felt amazing once I completed this because the amount of trial and error I had to go through to try and make this piece to curve over was extremely hard. And I probably could have kept it as separate pieces, but the amount of zip ties that would have taken, I feel like it would have been worse. So even on the inside there, you can see the sections that curve. And the way I secure this onto the bottom part, if I can get up in there to show you it, I cut a very small piece of coral board, put some zip tie holes in it, and cut it at an angle on this piece. That way, when it bends, it aligns with each section correctly. And put that zip tie through it. If you look at the front, the zip tie comes around. It's spray painted black with everything else. And it just holds it on the very top. And then there's a little tiny piece on the top that I have all of this angled, what we call these, I'll be honest, we called these top pieces mini trees because they're very similar to how mini trees are built, like the ones I have in my show. However, those are already custom cut, so it's easy to put those together, whereas this, we had to figure out the angles for them. But they're very similar to the mini trees because when it's all flattened out on the ground, the shape of it is very odd. But we have this top piece here, so everything meets up there and just helps keep it sturdy. And I won't lie, this leg is actually very sturdy. I keep it together as one whole piece. There's no need to separate it. So I'll store that as one piece. And all of the legs are identical to this. Both the back legs are the exact same, except the other back leg, instead of curving that way, it curves that way. And then the front legs, instead of having just the one bracket in them, I'm pretty sure they have 2 or 3 in them. Let me check. Nope, they have just 2. So there's this top bracket all the way up here. I better not drop my phone in there because that would suck. And then there's the bottom bracket down there to help hold that on too. And like I said, it's the same. I have an angled piece. You can see it great from this one. All these angles just come up in a way. And yeah. So there's just 2 more things I'd like to quickly try to show. The body and the head. I tried to move some stuff around so we can get a better view of the body, but I have nowhere to put all this stuff that's in here. And there's not really a whole lot on the inside that you need to see. So I could just show you quickly the outsides. And the outside, the whole body is very similar to how the legs are built, and everything else uses the same principles where like we'll put a little slice in something to bend it and try and use the least amount of pieces as possible. So the main piece we started with was a piece that runs from here all the way around. This isn't all one piece, but it runs all the way around to that corner. And that was the first part we wanted to build of the body. So I measured out a couple of different lengths. The original body was going to be a bit bigger than it was, but it was just going to be too big and hard to store and just wouldn't look right. You can even see some of the original lines I have on the board when this was a completely flat board when I was marking it out and whatever. But we have one board from that corner all the way and a bunch of slices in it. So a slice here, this is still one board. This is one board all the way through to here. And right here is where it stops being one board. So that one board goes all the way to here. I think this was cut to be 36 inches in width when it's standing up. And then I have no idea how long it was all the way around. But each section, if I pull out my tape measure here, we made each section be about 16 inches in length. So 32 inches wide and then 16 inches in length. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think a 6th one, yeah, 6 sections to this one piece. 16 times 6, what is that? That's 60, 96 inches if I'm right. So we took the whole length of the board, actually, because the board's coming 48 inches by 96 inches. We made it so it was 96 by 32 inches, and then just cut slices in here to bend it around. And then we had to take another 2 boards, one for just this piece right here, and one for here. I don't remember exactly why. I think I messed up when I was trying to figure out the size of it, and it needed to be a little bigger. And then we also have a board on the back. This is one singular board. It's also 32 inches in width, because it's the same as everything else. And then I'm not sure of the length, but there's only one single slice in it, which is in this part, but it's on this side of it here. That way the back can come down and then bend outward like you saw in the video. We right here where the sections of board had to meet in the front part, we made it double layered instead of just butting them right up against each other, just to help support it. And you can see that right here too. And then when the back part meets with the rest of the body, we just bud those up together and put zip ties in that, and that worked out fine. And we did the same here. The very bottom of it, which is the side of the body, I already showed that. It's just like that side, except it never comes off. And it's in 2 pieces down there, whereas that one is 1 piece, just because of what pieces were available. I had to make it 2 separate pieces instead of just making it the one like that one is for this side, which would cover up here. And then I have some very wonky, weird pieces I cut out to try and help hold the angle right here, because I had it calculated to be a certain degree angle at each one of these parts where a slice is. And I just have random boards that I cut to that are zip tied through to help hold those angles. And it's actually kind of funny because originally, as you can see, I think from this board, yeah, I was gonna try and hot glue all of the pieces together. So originally this piece, I tried to hot glue it to hold the angle in, but it didn't work. And that's when I started switching to zip ties and using zip ties for a lot of things. The glue did work though for pieces like here where there was an intersection of 2 boards, and I glued them together and then put the zip ties through just for 2 layers of support. But zip ties are really a lot better in my opinion than glue for my situation. So yeah, just at all of these angles, there's random pieces I cut out of extras to hold them. Now finally, we have the head here. And there's a lot of different things I want to get into this part of the head, but I also want to finish the video soon because it's already over an hour long. So the head has seen some better days because the quality of it has deteriorated while it was running during the show. And the head was really rushed because we were pressed for time. It was about a week until the show started, and I had to build the entire head and still have time to test everything and do everything I wanted with it. Also, the spray paint looks really horrible on this because it was 40s or 50 degree weather when I was building this, and you can't obviously spray paint inside, and you're not supposed to spray paint below a certain temperature, otherwise it turns out horrible. Anyway though, so overall, the idea of the head was to give it some scaly pieces, because I think most dragons have scales, at least pictures you've seen of them. So I wanted there to be a lot of different pieces to this, and yeah. Overall, I'm actually pretty happy with the design of it. I just want to change some things because right now, I'm not sure how well you can tell from here, but it's very lopsided. Yeah, you can't, well, maybe you could tell a little bit. It leans a lot to the one way just because the way everything was built, it started smushing on itself because there's no brackets inside of it to help hold it up. The thing that I mostly don't like is where I placed a lot of the pixels because it looks kind of funny, but it's not the end of the world. But yeah, so like I said, I wanted there to be some scales and a lot of detail to it, a lot of different pieces, and this was the hardest thing. The second hardest thing was the little toppers I did on the legs that all leaned to one side. This was the most hardest part. So let me tell you where I started out building this. I started with the bottom part, and as you can see, the bottom is really horrible. Let me move this up a little bit. There's a lot of different things I don't like, so please don't judge me on the quality of this. Like I said, we were pressed for time. So what I started with was this entire bottom piece from this edge here, the bottom here, and it was also supposed to include this piece right here. So this, and this was all going to be one singular piece. So I cut it all out. I was kind of guessing, but also using some measurements I took of the top of the neck to figure out the size of this. And I cut out the bottom piece, and it actually looked to be pretty good when I compared it to the neck. I could show you some pictures I think I have of it, and the overall size of the bottom looked good. And then after that, the teeth right here, as you can see, it has teeth. Well, let me make sure you can see it. Yeah, it has teeth right here. I didn't have these indentations cut out yet. It was all just one flat piece of board. So I was going to save that for later. And then the next thing I did, what was the next thing I did? Oh yeah, the next thing I did was make the first layer now that isn't the bottom. And what the first layer includes is this piece right here, this section right here, and it wraps all the way around the entire thing. Then there's a joint right here where I had to join two sections just because I didn't have a board long enough. And then it continues to be this section, if I can keep rotating it, all the way around here. And that is just one singular, well, technically two sections that were going to be designed as one. And then I was going to put that on top of that bottom board I had made. So now to do this, what I knew I wanted was at the back for the board to be pretty tall, and then as it goes on, it's going to get lower and lower and lower till it gets to the front, and then once it wraps around that way, it'll start getting higher again. And then I also need the board to not just be straight, but also, as you can see here, to start curving around to meet in the middle. Now, it's not perfectly symmetrical at all, but it's decently close for how little experience I have with making custom things. So I cut out those pieces and I zip tied them together in the very front as a separate piece, and then I brought it over to attach it to this bottom piece. Now looking back at it, that was the biggest mistake, because all of the smushing that's happening is right here, since these are technically two separate pieces, and you can see some tape that's falling off here. I wish that I had continued this board up here to be one singular piece. That way it wouldn't push on itself as much and it would be a little bit more stable. But now, since it's not, all the weight of the top part, because it is pretty heavy with the pixels in it and everything, is pushing down. And this actually came inward, inward a little bit more. It went inward like this way more, but now it's been pushing itself outward that way, lowering the entire head. So that was the first mistake, but at first I didn't notice it, so because there wasn't pixels in it and no weight, and it was okay then. The next piece I made was the very back. The back is all one singular piece. There's a whole lot of mess back here, so please don't mind it. The back is one entire piece, and I knew I needed to have a hole in it for the pipe where the fog comes in. There are going to be pixels that point that way into the mouth to sort of light up the inside of it. And then these extra pixels right here that don't go to anything, I used as null pixels to jump from one section of pixels to the next. So I made that back piece, and then the next piece I did to kind of complete the framework of the head was this piece that runs right down the middle here. That piece was going to be connected to the very front of it. It was going to be connected to the back, and then the back is connected to everything else, so it would hold itself up. Now, while I was building it, obviously it couldn't hold itself, so I took another board straight up and down and put it inside the mouth to hold that piece up while I was making the rest of the head. And the rest of the head is including everything in this zone right here and everything in this zone. The way I designed this is I knew I wanted it to slowly come down, not at just one continuous angle, because that would look weird. I wanted the top to be pretty flat and then like have a steep part, then not as steep, then continue back down. So I put little slices in it so it continued as one board, and then I joined it in the middle. And after that was attached, the next thing I did was I came to a side, and let me bring this in. I came to a side, and at this point, everything from this bottom section to this top section was empty, so there weren't boards here. So there are 4 different sections to this. There's this section, which is one board, this section, and then as you come around, there's this little section, and then this section. And the way I built these, I put a slice in it here so it kind of curves off to the top of the head. And then every other section as you continue down was supposed to be inside the other section, which it kind of is on some pieces and it isn't on others. But that was just my idea to get it to have like a scale-like type structure. The front pieces are definitely layered with each other though. This piece is way under this piece is under this piece just isn't under that piece. I zip tied these pieces to the very bottom part right here, and then as you can see by all the zip ties up here, they're also zip tied up there. It's the exact same on the other side. And then for the eyes right here, the board which did stick out a little bit, I put another slice in it so I could fold it down that way, and that also sticks under, all of these pieces stick under this main piece so I can layer them and then zip tie it. The eyes, I wanted the eyes to be really bright, so I put 3 pixels next to each other. And then, I don't think there's any other big things to the structure except the mouth, which I had to fix. If you look at the bottom, the mouth, or whatever you call that, this piece is not aligned. It's hanging over here, and then it's not over here. It's like completely shifted. The reason for that is everything was designed completely crooked, so I had to cut that off because this was all one piece to this board, and it stuck out way too far, so I had to cut it off, then lower it down, shift it over. I have a random wire up here just to jump data from one side of the mouth to the other without having the wire inside the mouth. And then what I did for the horns was I cut out 2 little pieces that look like horns and gave a little another section to them lower than what the bottom of it would be. And then I cut a hole in the top here and in the top of the head here so I could fit them in those little holes, and then I just zip tied them to stay in there. Now, if you're curious as to why there was black tape everywhere, and as you can see, it's falling off. Well, you can't see right now. As you can see, it's falling off. The reason for that is when the fog went into the head, as I showed earlier, the PVC pipe that went in the back had a 45-degree angle to flatten it out so it was level, like the fog would push straight out, and then I had another 45 to point it downwards out the mouth. I didn't have that other 45 at the beginning, so all of the fog was escaping through every single crack the dragon had. So I just took some electrical tape to try and fill in all of those holes, and there's a whole bunch on the inside. It's just such a mess. And showing it right now, I feel so much discomfort just from how bad I think it looks. Lots of people have told me it looks good, and it does look good from the road, but right now, looking at it up close, I don't like this at all. I don't know how people thought this looked good, but whatever. And then the final thing, which you can't really see now because I closed the zip ties just so it was easier for storing it, to make the mouth not fall too far forward but stay open at the correct level while it was on top of the dragon, I put a zip tie here and it went into this one tooth, and I didn't cut the extra off. That way I could adjust it, and as I pulled it, it lifted the mouthpiece, which you see here, which would lean a little bit farther down so it was open. Obviously the head's not going to be sticking up like this, but I could pull it in a little bit so I could get it to the perfect spot with how wide open I want it to be. And then once it was sitting up for a few days before the show started, I noticed the problem with it smushing on itself. So I tried to put some brackets on the inside. You could see a little triangular piece there and there. In there, there's that back one. I'll point an arrow at it because I can't, well, maybe I could take my finger. Right back there, that little piece. And then there's this piece here. And that's the same on the other side. So it could try and hold it up, but it didn't work the best, and it's failing right now. So the whole head is going to have to be redesigned. Maybe part of it can stay. I don't know. And then I would show you the whole wiring, how I got all of the pixels to go where on the inside, but I don't feel like it just because there's a lot. So what I'll tell you is I just did the same thing I did with the rest of the dragon, where I said I want pixels in these places and these places. How am I going to get the wires to jump from there to there? So, like, I just had to figure out the best path the data should take to go all around and get everywhere it needed to go. There are pixels I regret putting in here, and there are sections I wish I didn't put pixels on, sections I wish I did put pixels on, but it's all too late now. That is the head though, and yeah, that's all of the parts that I feel like showing. I hope this video was really helpful and gave you all the information you wanted to know about the dragon, everything to do with it. And I also hope that maybe it will give you some ideas or inspiration to build your own custom projects using some of the same principles with like Coroplast and making 3D models and doing it all that way. In the end, to summarize everything I've talked about and shown in this video, one thing I want to say is up close, everything is going to look absolutely horrible. I hate it. I hate standing right here looking at this. Like, my eyes hurt looking at it. But once you get everything together, get it built, maybe spray paint it to help how it looks, and then get the pixels in it and turn it on at night, it's not going to look as bad, especially from a far distance. So if you're looking for some wise words for building any type of custom project, fully custom, the first thing I'd say to think of is make sure you're not going crazy. Make sure you give yourself a few days to think about this decision and the effects it could cause. If you get past that part and realize, this might be a stupid idea, get rid of it. But if you do get past a few days and thinking about it and still seems like a good idea, then I'd say make a 3D model with it. Learn a little bit about 3D modeling. You don't have to become the biggest expert, but a little bit of it will help to give you a better idea of how it will look, and that's where I would start. Now from there, that's up to you. You could follow the path I did where I tried to just use trial and error, make pieces different sizes, put things together, and I did actually end up throwing out a decent amount of material, starting off with the legs and how they were the wrong size. I had to shrink them. You saw everything in the video. But there's my wisdom about building custom props. Now, this video is going to be in the What the Prop series, second episode actually. I can't believe I made the first one months ago and this is finally the second episode. But let me know if you like these really long videos where I break down everything and show it all, or if you'd like it a little bit shorter, because an hour and a half is probably what this video is going to be, and it's really long at this point. So maybe even around 40 minutes, if that would be better. I can't show everything, but I could show still a decent amount. I could go even shorter, or I could continue with this length. Let me know what you think, and what you'd like to see. And then if you have any questions or comments at all, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And this is normally the part where I'd say I'll try to respond as soon as I can. However, there have been so many comments coming in and so many people needing help, and I've been trying to help everyone, but I can't do it all. So if it takes days, weeks to answer your comment, please forgive me, because during this time of year, there's a lot of people looking for help on YouTube videos, and if I can't answer all of them, I apologize. So I'll try to get to them. If your question doesn't get immediately answered by me and you need help right this moment to get something up, I'd recommend checking out the Xlights Zoom room or any of the forums out there on Facebook or just anywhere, because there are people that don't have 1,000 comments coming at them. They could help you a lot better than I probably could. But that is going to conclude it for everything to do with this dragon video. I feel like I gotta add something else, but no, that's it. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.